Somewhere out there, right now, an alien civilization might be watching us scream into the void and hoping we stop before it's too late. I'm FactSpark. If you're new here, subscribe, because we're about to go somewhere most science channels are too afraid to go. Look, we all grew up thinking that if aliens existed, they'd eventually say hello. Maybe a radio signal, maybe a ship, maybe just a weird light in the sky that nobody can explain. But what if the silence isn't because they're not there? What if it's because they're hiding? And what if we're the idiots who keep making noise? That's exactly what the dark forest hypothesis proposes. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But before we get there, let's set the table. You've probably heard of the Fermi paradox. The basic version goes like this. The universe is enormous. We're talking hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars, many of them with planets orbiting at just the right distance for liquid water, for chemistry, for life. The math says there should be civilizations everywhere. And yet, nothing. Dead silence. No signals, no visitors, no proof. Just us, floating on a pale blue dot, talking to ourselves. Scientists and thinkers have thrown a lot of explanations at this problem over the decades. Some say maybe we really are alone, that intelligent life is so improbable that it only happened once, here, by cosmic accident. Others suggest aliens exist, but are deliberately avoiding us, following something like a cosmic version of a non-interference policy. Don't mess with the primitive ones.
There's also the possibility that advanced civilizations exist, but are operating so far beyond our technological level that our radio waves look to them the way a Stone Age drumbeat sounds to us, completely beneath notice. And then there's the Great Filter, probably the most unsettling idea of the bunch. It says that somewhere between the origin of life and a truly spacefaring civilization, there's a wall, a catastrophe, a bottleneck that almost nothing survives. Could be nuclear war, could be a pandemic, could be climate collapse so severe a planet becomes uninhabitable. Could be a nearby supernova sterilizing everything within range. The universe is a violent, hostile place, and the odds of surviving long enough to become a multi-planetary species might be vanishingly small. Here's a question I want you to sit with, and actually drop your answer in the comments below. If you had to bet, do you think the Great Filter is already behind us or still ahead? Because your answer changes everything about what the dark forest hypothesis means for humanity. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The dark forest hypothesis is a relatively recent addition to this conversation. It takes its name from a science fiction novel by the celebrated Chinese author Liu Cixin, part of his trilogy that begins with the three-body problem. The concept is introduced in the second book, and it works like this. Imagine the universe not as a neighborhood where civilizations eventually introduce themselves over the cosmic fence, but as a vast, lightless forest. Every civilization is a hunter moving silently through the dark. No lights, no noise, careful steps, controlled breathing. Because in this forest, every other living thing is a potential threat. Liu built his hypothesis on two foundational axioms. First, survival is the primary drive of any civilization. Just like any organism, any society, no matter how advanced, no matter how peaceful internally, is ultimately oriented around not ceasing to exist. Second, civilizations expand and consume resources, but the total resources in the universe are finite. Put those two things together, and you get inevitable competition. Maybe not today, maybe not for thousands of years, but eventually, two expanding civilizations will want the same thing. But wait, why would that automatically lead to silence and fear? Couldn't civilizations just negotiate, share, trade, cooperate? This is where two additional factors come in, and they're the real engine of the hypothesis. The first is what Liu calls the chain of suspicion. When two civilizations encounter each other across interstellar distances, communication is brutally slow. Even at the speed of light, and we have no evidence anything can travel faster, a message to our nearest stellar neighbor takes over 4 years one way. To most civilizations of interest,
We're talking centuries. So when Civilization A detects Civilization B, it faces a problem it cannot solve quickly. Is B friendly or hostile? And here's the trap. Even if B seems friendly right now, A can't know what B will be like in 500 years when the next message arrives. And B knows that A knows this. And A knows that B knows that A knows. The uncertainty compounds infinitely. Good intentions can't be verified across that kind of distance and time. So even a civilization that is fundamentally peaceful, fundamentally benevolent, might rationally conclude, I cannot afford to trust. And once you start thinking that way, the next thought isn't far behind.
The second factor is technological explosion. Here's the core problem with interstellar warfare. By the time your attack fleet arrives, a century or more might have passed. The civilization you sent it to destroy has had 100 years to advance. You might be sending wooden ships to fight jet fighters. So a direct military assault is almost always a losing proposition. The defender has time on their side. But a long-range strike, a targeted signal that wipes out a planet's atmosphere, a weapon that travels at a significant fraction of the speed of light, now you're talking about something that might actually work. And the moment that kind of technology exists, the calculus of survival changes completely. The safest move, the rational move, is not to be detected in the first place. Silence becomes strategy. Invisibility becomes armor. Liu describes it with an image that's hard to shake. He says, the universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter stalking through the trees, moving carefully, breathing quietly, watching for movement. And if that hunter spots another life form, anything, friendly looking or not, weak or strong, familiar or alien, there is only one logical choice. Eliminate it before it eliminates you. Because in this forest, existence is danger. Anyone who reveals themselves becomes a target. That is the dark forest hypothesis, and that is its answer to the Fermi paradox. The universe isn't silent because it's empty. It's silent because everyone is hiding. Now, Liu isn't alone in arriving at something like this conclusion. Two American authors, Charles Pellegrino and George Zabrowski, explored almost identical logic in their novel The Killing Star, arriving there independently through a thought experiment worth considering.
They propose two premises. 1. Every civilization prioritizes its own survival above the survival of any other. That's not cynicism. That's just how biology works. Every organism that didn't prioritize its own continuity isn't here anymore to tell us about it. 2. Any civilization that has managed to unify its planet and develop interstellar travel has necessarily done so through competition, aggression, and drive. The same survival instinct that pushed a species to dominate its environment and reach for the stars doesn't disappear just because they get there. Apply those two premises universally, which is what the cosmological principle suggests we should do, since there's no reason to think Earth's life is categorically different from life elsewhere, and you get a universe full of civilizations all assuming the worst about each other. The chain of suspicion that Liu described kicks in. Preemptive action starts to look like wisdom, and silence, again, becomes the safest option. One small but important note. The dark forest is not a scientific theory in the technical sense. The word theory in science carries a specific weight. It means something tested, falsified, refined by evidence. This is a hypothesis, a compelling, internally consistent hypothesis that draws on real physics and logic, but a hypothesis. I'm flagging this not to dismiss it, but because precision matters when we're talking about something this consequential. Here's what makes it personally unsettling, and why you should keep watching to the end, because there's an angle here almost nobody talks about. If the dark forest hypothesis is correct, then humanity has been doing something extraordinarily reckless for decades. We've been shouting. Our entire approach to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, what scientists call SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been mostly passive. We point telescopes at the sky, and we listen. Fine. That's quiet. That's safe. But alongside that, we've also been transmitting, actively sending messages out into the cosmos, and that's a very different thing. The active transmission side is called METI, Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
The term was coined by Russian scientist Alexander Zaitsev in 2006 to distinguish it from simply listening, and we've been doing it for longer than most people realize. The first attempt came in 1962 from a Soviet radar facility in Crimea. Scientists beamed a radio signal in Morse code toward Venus, which at the time some researchers considered a candidate for habitability. Small gesture, probably harmless, but a start. The most famous transmission came 12 years later. In 1974, from the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, astronomers sent what became known as the Arecibo Message. It was designed by Frank Drake, of the Drake equation, and Carl Sagan, whose name should be familiar to anyone who's ever looked at a night sky and felt something. The message was made of 1,679 binary digits, arranged in a rectangle of 73 rows by 23 columns, both numbers prime, which was intentional, as prime numbers are considered a possible mathematical universal.
The message contained the numbers 1 through 10, the atomic numbers of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, the elements of DNA, the structure of the double helix itself, a figure representing a human being, the population of Earth at the time, roughly 4 billion, a map of the solar system with Earth highlighted, and the dimensions of the Arecibo dish itself. It was aimed at a star cluster called M13, 21,000 light-years away. We will not receive a reply for at least 42,000 years, if ever. Between 1999 and 2016, several privately funded projects added more transmissions, messages aimed at stars between 17 and 69 light-years away. We also sent physical objects into deep space aboard the Pioneer and Voyager probes, plaques and golden records containing sounds, images, music, and, critically, a map showing how to find Earth. A map to find us. In total, 9 METI projects have been carried out since 1962, with more planned. Now, think about that through the lens of the dark forest. We have been broadcasting our location, our biology, our population, our technology level, and our survival requirements. Essentially everything a predator would need to know to anyone in range with the right equipment. We went into the dark forest and we started singing, loudly, with a sign around our neck that says, "Here's where I sleep." And this is the part that should give everyone pause. Not just scientists, but anyone who's ever thought about risk. If the hypothesis holds, then silence is not just modesty. Silence is survival. The civilizations that exist long enough to matter are the ones that never let anyone know they exist.
The ones that announce themselves are gone. We just can't see the graves from here. Stephen Hawking, one of the most recognizable scientific minds of the modern era, explicitly warned against active messaging to extraterrestrials. His reasoning tracked almost perfectly with the dark forest logic. He compared a potential alien encounter to what happened when European ships arrived on the shores of the Americas. The technologically superior civilization didn't come in peace. But here's the other side, and this is what makes the Fermi paradox genuinely two-sided and not just a horror story. Arthur C. Clarke, the scientist and science fiction writer who arguably understood the relationship between humanity and the cosmos better than almost anyone, put it simply. There are 2 possibilities. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. If we're alone, if despite 13,800,000,000 years of cosmic history, despite the incomprehensible number of stars and planets and possible biospheres, nothing else evolved to the point of intelligence, then we are the universe's only chance to understand itself. Every star ever named, every galaxy ever mapped, every question ever asked about what any of this means, it all comes down to us, and we carry that alone, heading toward an inevitable extinction with no audience. If we're not alone, if the universe is full of minds, full of civilizations, full of histories as long and strange as ours, then we're surrounded by unknowns. We can't verify their intentions. They can't verify ours. And the gap between making contact and triggering a catastrophic misunderstanding might be smaller than any of us want to believe. Both scenarios demand humility. Both demand that we think very carefully about what we do next. Maybe the aliens are out there and they're kind. Maybe the forest has a clearing somewhere, and civilizations that find each other decide to lower their weapons. Maybe the chain of suspicion can be broken if the right message is sent in the right way at the right time. Or maybe the silence is a warning. Maybe the smartest thing any civilization ever learned was when to stop making noise. I'm FactSpark. If this made you think, even a little uncomfortable, that's exactly the point. Drop your answer in the comments. Great filter behind us or ahead? And if you want more videos that take ideas seriously and don't talk down to you, subscribe. New video coming soon. Until then, stay curious. And maybe, just maybe, keep it down.